I'm Susan Cauley, and welcome to You're Not Alone Surviving a Child's Disability. Disabled individuals are frequently targeted by some form of abuse, neglect, or violence. If they learn to defend themselves, this important skill not only can increase their personal safety, but help them gain confidence and self-awareness to survive in the world. Here to discuss personal safety training for the disabled from Impactability are Megan Anderson, manager and lead coach, and Mike Perry, head instructor. Hi, how are you today?
Good, how are you?
Good. How do you empower a disabled person's life through personal safety training?
Well, in a lot of ways. I mean, we start out very small, sort of building their confidence, learning simple things, and then getting a little more complicated, and really just using their words to see that they can say no, that they have control over their own lives is very empowering to people. Unfortunately, this population is very used to being led around, being told what to do, and even just the little things of teaching them, you can say no if somebody's touching you in a way you don't like even just a tap on the shoulder. You can say no if somebody wants to talk to you and you don't want to talk. Those things really make people realize that they have more control over their lives than they might have thought.
I think that's great. Do you have a comment about that?
Yeah, and it translates in other things too. Often having that kind of confidence about your body and stuff like that can lead into giving folks more confidence to maybe travel, get jobs, do things that they're afraid to be out in the community and stuff like that.
Live on their own.
Yeah, that confidence kind of bleeds into other areas of their life.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Can you describe what personal safety training actually is and what it entails?
I'm gonna hand that
Would
one
you
to
Mike? Would you like to say that?
You mean the actual program that we teach?
Yes.
Okay. There's different models. They all kind of pivot on the same base principles. It focuses on self-defense because the confidence people get from that, like we talked about, goes. And the way we look at self-defense is dealing with the whole spectrum, everything from dealing with uncomfortable situations up to actual danger situations that may require a physical response. Program has three base components. The way I like to look at it is first for the students to get develop an awareness of what's around them as well as awareness of how they're feeling about it. Then the next would be able to take the appropriate steps about what's the best, like you'd handle a dangerous situation different than you would an uncomfortable one. And then the last phase would be, which is really important, is a reporting phase. Because usually after something's happened, it's important, certainly in a dangerous situation, you're going to report and let people know what's happening. So further action probably needs to be taken. But even on the smaller stuff, like if they set a boundary and stood up for themselves, it's important to report that to someone, even if it's just it helps reinforce that you did the right thing, and if you feel good about not saying bragging, but maybe on some level could be a little bit of that, especially if it's someone who's just never had that concept and is always at the opposite.
How long do you think it takes for somebody to go through that whole process? Or how long is your training usually?
Once again, we have different models. Typically, we have like an 8-class model. And they tend, people will do the classes at different time. A class is usually an hour and a half. And sometimes we run them maybe once a week, so it might be 8 weeks over that time. Sometimes folks might want to say, we want to have 2 classes this week, 1 class next week, and then some folks go for shorter classes. Sometimes it's workshops where it's a one-shot, kind of deal. So it really depends.
It varies on what the person wants.
What the person wants and the population too. Like there's going to be different needs for different groups. If you're working with folks who have like a visual disability, or if it's hearing, but cognitively cognitively. If it's like general population, you deal. It's like depending on where you are, you have different needs, so we try to address them on where they're at.
I think that's great. Now, how do you teach safety skills to disabled children and adults without scaring them or giving them explicit information?
Oh yeah, that's a good question. You want to say a little of that?
You want to?
Sure. The big cutoff, you would say, is we will only take people into the class if we feel they can understand the difference between role play and reality. We certainly don't want to have a student come in and feel that they have actually been abused or that somebody has actually been calling them names. We really rely on the teachers and the program managers to pick people that are appropriate for the class. And after that, it's really about building trust and rapport with us as the instructors. So we start off really slow. Like I said, it'll be, in the first class, it'll be just as much as, telling a person to stop when Mike's wearing the sunglasses as a stranger, just telling them to stop, telling them you don't want to talk. And we do get into some difficult things, because those are the things that really need to be addressed. For example, we have a scenario that's an inappropriate sexual touch by a caregiver. And that's very difficult. Obviously, we simulate the touch just by a poke on the leg or even just a hand near you to simulate that touch. But it's something that needs to be addressed. But again, it's not until much later in the class, once they've learned to trust us, once they learn what the class is about. And that way we're able to sort of ease them into it, and they understand that it's necessary.
Well, trust is a very important issue for people who have disabilities. And they don't always know not to trust people, so you basically design your curriculum to fit the needs of every disabled individual.
Yeah, be different population. It's like if it's mobility, is the disability, then we'll go about it. The scenarios. I should have backed up. We are a scenario-based training model, and so what that means is I have 2 roles in the class. I co-teach with Megan, and then I also act out the perpetrator or the person I have to give a boundary to. And what that means is that when I put the sunglasses on, the students understand, okay, when the glasses on, I'm a stranger, so we're going to make believe this is real, it's role playing, and we act it out. And like she was talking about all the scenarios, how we start if it was a swimming class, we're just barely poking our toes in the water, get up to our ankles in the first class, and we'll go a little further and a little further. So they watch us do a demonstration first, then we talk about what we just did, then we'll have them get up and Megan will practice the individual skills she just did. Then individually they'll all each come out, I'll put the sunglasses on. So they get to actually practice doing it. And as time goes on, even though they trust and they know it's fake, it can still produce adrenaline and the nervousness, and they get used to being able to still do these things while feeling that stuff.
Of course, I think that's great. So is there a minimum criteria for disabled individuals to participate in these trainings? Is there a type of disability that you don't deal with?
Probably like the cutoff would be is if, like Megan said, if someone doesn't understand that we're just doing a scenario and acting it out, just practicing, we can't teach that individual in this model, because then they would actually think they're being abused.
Right. It's sort of up to us as instructors to go in, learn as much about the group as we can beforehand, but go in, see what's in front of us, and teach to the group. Our curriculum, part of what makes it so great is that it's very adaptable. We can change things to make them a little more difficult if it seems like the crowd can handle it, or we can make them a little simpler, a little more concrete, depending on what kind of disabilities our students have.
Yeah, and it also depends on the individual. If you got an individual who's already out in the community and stuff, well, they're going to be dealing with more situations like that. If you have another individual who really isn't out in the community much, and maybe they always have a caregiver with them, well, they're going to have more situations between them and the caregiver, more boundary stuff like that. So we'll focus appropriately.
Now, you teach these personal safety skills through role playing and through physical self-defense, sort of. Is there any other types of skills that these people learn? Or types of ways that you teach them?
Well, that's the primary model. The amazing thing is like a picture's worth 1,000 words. Like if we were to start a class off and just start explaining to any population, okay, this is what we're doing, this is self-defense. It's so much easier when you just show a scenario.
Right.
And then you explain what just happened there and why we did what we did. You get people learn a lot quicker. Then once they get up to do it, they actually can feel it. You get more confidence when you're actually feeling it, not just watching and talking about it. So that's the main reason why we do it. It's, it's kind of like swimming. The only way to swim is to get in the water and learn how to do it.
Learn how to do the swimming.
As far as physical skills, I would say we sort of divide those into 2 groups. So there's defensive skills and sort of offensive skills, kind of would be a way to put it. So we don't teach, like, our primary physical skill, if you're being attacked physically, would be an eye strike. but we only teach that to populations that we feel can discern when and when not to use it. You know, you don't use this if you're mad at somebody, you only use this if you're in, you know, imminent danger. Whereas if somebody's trying to grab your wrist and you need to get your wrist out of that, or if somebody's coming at you, you need to push their arm away. These are skills that everybody can use.
Right.
So again, it's really up to us as instructors to see the group, understand what their needs are, understand what they can handle, and whether or not those skills would come into play. So it's sort of, we definitely don't take it lightly. We make sure that the students, we're teaching them what's best.
Yeah, and if we have a situation where it's kind of like in the middle, okay, maybe they have the impulse control, maybe they have the judgment, we'll go with the more conservative. We'll stick with the more defensive skills as opposed to showing something that could harm somebody.
Right.
Okay. Do you think you can give us a demonstration of some of these skills that you teach?
Sure.
Absolutely.
That would be great.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so we're going to do a demonstration of a scenario that we do in the class, and we're going to present it the same way as we would to a class. All right, so this scenario is going to be Megan's out here, she's standing outside somewhere, maybe at a bus stop or something like that. And when I put the glasses on, I'm going to be a stranger. We don't know if he's a bad guy or a good guy, but he's going to be standing really close to her, and you're
I'm uncomfortable with that.
So we're just going to show you how to kind of deal with that. So first we're just going to act the whole thing through, then afterwards I'll take the glasses off and we'll both talk about, you know, why she did what she did to keep safe and how to get out of an uncomfortable position.
This would be a scenario that we do in a first or second class to sort of build trust and to get basic skills.
All right, so.
Ready? Stop.
Oh, what's on?
You're too close.
Oh, sorry, I wasn't paying attention, sorry.
Thank you. Okay. Stop.
So, talk a little bit about that.
So I'm standing here at a bus
See that
stop.
just a bit?
Yes.
All right, so this guy comes in, he's way too close.
Right. He's not touching me, but you can sense when somebody is this close to you, it's very awkward. So my choices are I can stand here, feel uncomfortable, or I can, you know, move to the side, see what happens. So I'm going to move over here, take a breath, you know, get my comfort back and sort of keep him in the corner of my eye, see what he's doing, right? I don't know if he's bad or good, I just know I don't want him close to me.
If he stays here, problem's probably solved.
Right. But he doesn't.
But, you know, this guy started to inch a little bit closer, you know.
Right. So I'm going to turn in what we call a strong stance. Just put one hand up and said stop.
Got his attention, now he's looking at her, and, you know, there's going to be a moment, you know, if this person was up to no good, they might just walk away and say nothing. Or with this one, you know, this guy was a little confused. Maybe he didn't realize he was getting close and making her uncomfortable.
Right.
So he was like, what's going on?
So I said, you're too close. Depending on the language skills of the population, we might say, no offense, I need some space, things like that, or just too close if somebody
Yeah.
has limited verbal
If
skills.
someone's no verbal, they may just
Might just do this.
go like that.
But really just letting the boundaries across, I don't want you in my space.
Yeah, and this is a reoccurring theme we have throughout the class. It's about getting in a strong stance, breathing, communicating with your body. Don't come any close. Like you could be across the street and see that this person doesn't want this person to get close.
Right.
So that's something we teach a lot. And this guy kind of got it, and this character I was playing there kind of got it, and he just kind of walked away and gave her space.
So that would be a typical, you know, beginner level stranger situation. Then we would show one, for example, this is going to be somebody they know that's touching them on the shoulder and they're just not comfortable being touched.
So just be clear, the first time I was playing a stranger, this time maybe we work together.
Sure.
We'll give this guy a fictional name. We'll call him Bill. So if you step just a tad this way, that's good. So Bill's going to walk up and he's just going to tap her on the shoulder, and we'll just show you how that looks.
Ready?
Hey, there you are. I was looking for you.
Hey, please don't touch me.
Whoa, something wrong?
Oh, no offense. I don't like to be touched.
Oh, geez, you know, I didn't even realize I did that. It's a bad habit. I'm sorry. I meant nothing by
Oh,
it.
no worries. I just wanted to let you know.
Okay, well, we still all right? I'm sorry about that.
We're totally good.
Okay, I was just trying to get your attention. Say hi.
Okay,
All right.
thanks. All right. So, again, we want people setting boundaries about little things, like a simple touch on the shoulder, so they can set boundaries about larger things. So this is really important. This is hard for everybody to do, regardless of, you know, whether they have a disability or not.
Once again, he's touching, if she's uncomfortable with this, you know, the choices are what? You stay here and do nothing.
Stay here and have my face.
Or
hand on me.
maybe this is the straw that broke the camel's back and she completely flips
Right.
out and starts
Why are you
screaming.
always touching me? You know,
Yeah.
that sort of thing.
So,
He touches me, I check in, I'm not comfortable with this. I'm gonna move to the side just to get his hand off me to change the physical dynamic.
yeah, from here, she got some distance. She can speak where this can be a difficult thing to stand up for. But if she was to stay in close with the hand on and tried to make the same
Right.
speech, this is
Please
much
don't
more
touch
difficult,
me.
you know?
He's kind of like, what? I'm still touching you.
So getting
Right.
a little bit of distance here helps in that.
Right. So I put my hands up just to communicate strength, confidence. Please don't touch me.
And you know, I played out a character who was really just clueless, didn't know about,
Right.
and which is usually the case in these types of things. And he was, you know, he was a little defensive, like, hey, what's wrong, you know, this and that.
Right. And I don't want him to feel like I think he's gross. That's why I don't want him to touch me. So I said, no offense, I don't like to be touched. Letting them know these are the rules about my body.
And she's addressing the issue, not the person. So the whole thing about being nice isn't necessarily because we're teaching them to be nice, but it makes her work a lot easier if this person doesn't start getting all defensive and like,
Right.
well, what's your problem, you know?
Right.
And it's really pretty clean cut. It's about this guy touched her. She informed him about the rules about her body, and he got it, and he was apologetic. And then also handling it this way, if you go to see this person all the time, it won't be as awkward next time you see them. So.
Right. So this works not only for, you know, simple boundary setting with people you know, but also, unfortunately, we know that perpetrators will often sort of test out people to see if they would be a good victim. You know, they might first tap the shoulder a couple times, see if somebody says no, start putting their arm around them, see if somebody says no.
Maybe a back rub, and it can
Right,
just escalate.
and it can
from there.
escalate, unfortunately. So stopping it at a simple shoulder tap is really abuse prevention overall.
Yep.
Thank you so much. That was very interesting.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Now, what do you teach about protection from bullying to disabled individuals, especially children?
Well, we have two different units that sort of address bullying. The first is sort of a traditional kind of name-calling situation. So we have a couple scenarios that deal with that. You know, one is you're walking by, you have somewhere to go, somebody's calling you names. Another is,
Right.
you know, you're waiting for your bus, or you're somewhere you need to be, and somebody's coming at you, calling you names. And mostly what we teach is to be really aware of whether you're in danger or not, right? Obviously words hurt, and we talk a lot about, you know, why somebody might call somebody a name, what kind of names have you heard that really bother you. A lot of times students will say the R word, things like that, that really hurt them personally. And then we talk a little bit about how it's good to get used to hearing those words so that you can think about your safety in the moment, take a breath, not let that word get to you, not let that person have control over you. So Mike's character, which is usually somebody they know, we could just give them an arbitrary name, say this is somebody you know, we'll call them names as they're walking by or as they are, you know, standing, and they'll say, stop, leave me alone, or they'll keep their head high, take a breath, keep walking, always report the situations. And then we also have another unit where we cover rumors, because that can be a sort of vicious way of bullying, making up stories about people, which again happens no matter where you go, especially in high school, which is where we spend a lot of our time. And that's sort of just having the person confront the person spreading rumors about them in a, you know, neutral way. If you are doing this, I don't like it, it hurts my feelings. And then the character will react in different ways. The first time they'll be sort of understanding, the second time, which is usually the one that would most likely happen, they say, I'm not doing that, and sort of not getting baited into those situations. Yes, you are, you're this, you're that, and sort of keeping cool and calm, and then again, always reporting, so that if you do confront the situation and tell the person to leave you alone and they don't, you can say, well, you know, report to the teacher or whoever it is and say, you know, I had told you this before, I tried to handle it on my own, but they're still doing it, I need some help. So that's sort of how we address that overall.
Right, and how does, what about cyberbullying?
Cyberbullying is something that we're sort of starting to get into now. We haven't really, I mean, as far as boundary setting goes, it's applicable to, you know, a situation where we would, for example, ask the students, what's a scenario that you might come into play? So it would be talking to somebody outside of the cyber world in person, saying, I know you've been saying these things about me on Facebook or Twitter or whatever it is, please stop, and then reporting an individual. It's always really about, no matter what the you know, type of bullying that's happening, it's about setting clear boundaries with somebody. If they're not listening, always getting help to take steps to deal with it.
Right.
And the goal isn't always necessarily to stop. That's kind of unrealistic to think that just because you say something, the person's going to stop.
Right.
The bigger goal is that they know that they have the power to do something and not helpless and just have to take this stuff. They can do things to, you know, change. You know, it's like you can control the sails on your ship, but you can't control the winds. But, you know, it still gives you an ability to kind of navigate through your life as opposed to being, you know.
What do you do with somebody who's nonverbal, though? Or, you know, that's, you know, getting bullied. I mean, how do they deal with that?
Again, we're working a lot with technology now. People usually, if they're nonverbal, either have a Dynavox or an iPad.
Yeah.
In which case, we'll work with especially if it's a longer program, we'll work with speech to see if they can program some boards in that will, be appropriate. I don't like
Words
that,
or
please
phrases.
stop.
Yeah.
Things like that. And a lot of times, if they have a one-to-one, we would work with how would you tell your one-to-one, or how would you talk to your caregiver to let them know this was happening to you. And it can get very challenging to find the best way for them to communicate, but that's part of what we take the time to do, because those people are generally feel even more disempowered because they can't necessarily say it, stop, I
Right.
don't like this in the same
Right.
way. So we work with body language. Can they put one hand up? Can they shake their head? What can they do to show that they don't like this?
Oh, that's interesting.
Also with the thing that always strikes me is like usually the phrases or the words that we want to have them do usually aren't even there. It's like just something as simple as I don't like
I don't
that.
like that, yeah.
Isn't even on there. So
It's very hard for
as
these
time
people.
goes
Yeah,
on,
it's
we're
usually
gonna-
not. I mean, I have 2 autistic daughters, and
Yep.
one of mine is nonverbal,
right.
and she has a Dynavox, but there is nothing on it that I know of at this point that has anything to do with, physical boundaries or,
Right.
bullying or anything,
Yeah.
of that nature. There's just not.
Right.
Yeah,
They
it's
don't-
something that we've been sort of pushing for in different school settings, because especially with the reporting aspect, even just something that says something happened, something bad happened, something I'm not comfortable with happened.
Right.
Because if they can at least get that part out, then whoever they're with can sort of ask questions to try to figure out, did this happen, yes, no. Whereas if they don't have anything to voice, especially something that they don't like, it becomes really challenging for them to report.
I'd like them to have because usually you have to kind of toggle through and these phrases aren't all in the same place we want. I'd like to have it where there's like a little
page
red,
or
yeah,
something,
like a
or a
little red
page
like
or
thing
a
on the
little-
outside. You can hit that like your self-defense page and has all your phrases right on there for boundaries and stuff.
That would be great. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, I think that's something that people should take into consideration of
Absolutely.
any age. I
Yes.
mean, even
Oh, yeah.
adults,
Mm-hmm.
especially with adults with disabilities.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think anybody has taught them, how to defend themselves. And in this day and age, you have a lot of people that don't respect people who have disabilities
Mm-hmm.
or
Absolutely.
don't understand, so they,
Yeah.
take things out on people. But
And on that note, actually, I should talk a little bit more about impactability as a program. So impactability is, the self-defense is a part of it, but it's also a larger program. We are, Impact Boston is a self-defense program that is housed within Triangle Incorporated. So it gets a little
Okay.
tricky. Triangle is a disability service agency.
Yeah.
Impact Boston is a nonprofit housed within Triangle. So Impactability is a program that's grant funded largely through the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation. And the goal is not only to teach self-defense to people with disabilities, but also to create environments that make them less vulnerable to abuse in general. So we at Triangle have been working to create culture change to make people with disabilities more respected, to make them less vulnerable to abuse that way, to empower them to have choices. And to make policies that really protect them in that way. And to make sure that people know what to do if somebody comes up to them and says, somebody with a disability comes and says, I'm being abused,
Right.
what do you do, right? Especially as an employee, as a mandated reporter, what do you do? So that has been going on at Triangle for a couple years now, and we've had really positive changes.
can you talk a little bit about the reporting aspect?
Absolutely. As a person with a disability, as a mandated reporter, as a parent, all of the above.
Right.
Okay. Well, generally what we find happens is that, a person with a disability will come to a trusted adult. That's what we train
Right.
them to do also. It's just sort
Okay.
of what generally happens. And we have a checklist as part of Impactability. We created a checklist for all of our staff members that hangs on all the walls in our all the rooms in our building that says what to do if an individual reports abuse. And you just go right down the list. So the first would be thank a person for telling you, right? Make sure they're feeling safe, they feel like they made the right decision. Let them know you're a mandated reporter. Let them know that you have to call the Disabled Persons Protection Commission, which here in Massachusetts is our agency that protects people with disabilities that don't fall under DCF or Department of Elder Services. So anybody between 18 and 59 who has a disability falls under the DPPC realm. So you let them know, you know, I am a mandated reporter. If you tell me somebody's hurting you, I have to call this place to keep you safe. And then, you know, if they choose to still disclose, then you would, you know, empathize with them, let them make sure they're safe, make sure they're physically
Right.
safe. Are you going back to a place?
That would be, you know, your number one, you know, issue is to make sure they're currently safe.
Exactly. Are you going home somewhere where you're going to be hurt? Are you going back to a residence where you're going to be hurt? And then just calling DPPC. They have a hotline. The operators are very helpful, and they actually have their own state police unit within DPPC that's trained to work with people with disabilities.
Wow.
Which is wonderful, because a
That
lot
is
of times
wonderful.
police officers, through no fault of their own, don't have the training to understand how to,
Right.
you know, interrogate somebody without re-traumatizing them, especially if somebody's been sort of trained to feel that if the police come, you've done something
Right.
bad.
Right.
So they're really great. They'll come out, they'll do an interview.
The
And
police
that's-
are also very intimidating.
They can be.
I mean,
yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
when you call somebody for, you know, for a call, like all of a sudden you get the police, the fire, the EMTs.
Exactly.
Wow, there's
And
lights,
Exactly.
people who have disabilities are like,
uniforms.
what?
It's sensory overload,
Yeah.
especially for someone with autism to have
Oh,
all
yes.
of that going on.
Oh,
Can I
yeah.
speak to the other end of that? What we teach the students.
Sure.
So what we teach the students in the class in terms of reporting will vary whether it's a stranger versus someone they know. If a stranger did something to them, we just try, and we practice, because we practice the reporting actually in the class. So after every scenario they do, they'll actually practice the reporting stuff.
Oh, that's great.
So it's kind of, you know, we want that to be part of the whole thing. So if it's a stranger, we just try to have them remember 4 basic things, you know. How tall was the person? How wide was the person? Complexion, color, skin, or whatever, and roughly the age. If they can remember stuff after that, clothes and, you know, things like that. Because we just want to kind of be able to pay attention, because often when stuff's happening with adrenaline, stuff like that, usually so stuff happens, the person gets away, and they're like, oh, I don't even have a clue what this person
Right.
looked like. So it can help, you know, afterwards with folks trying to, you know, if they have to go find who this individual was and so forth. If it's someone they know, they'll tell the person they know, and if the person knows the person, they don't have to get into a description, obviously, but they'll get into, you know, what happened, what the person did, what they did to get out of it, you know, and then the rest will fall into like what she was talking about in terms of how the person deals with the.
So we want to make sure it's covered on both ends, that the individuals know how to report and that the people they're reporting to, these agencies, know what to do. We actually have trainings geared towards identifying abuse and what to do if somebody comes to you and says they're being abused, that we do in different disability service agencies around the state. So that's part of impactability as a whole.
And the biggest thing about the reporting, even if the student doesn't remember to bring up all these details,
Right.
just the fact that they
We're
reported.
able to report it.
Yeah.
Now, how does a person with a disability learn to set clear and appropriate boundaries? That's a very difficult thing, I think, especially for autistic individuals.
I think that's where the scenario-based training and practice really comes in,
Right.
because they actually practice going through it, you know? And because they see everybody else doing it, and because there is a little bit of nervousness and adrenaline, it's as close as you can get to doing the real thing. So they get to kind of go through that ride, and it's just, you know, it's the practice of doing it, you know?
Absolutely. The concrete skills are helpful. The repetition is helpful. And we teach these boundary setting classes to all populations,
Yep.
because everybody
I
needs
think
practice,
everybody,
right?
Everybody could
Oh,
use
yeah.
practice on setting boundaries. I mean,
And that's the method that works best for everybody. They do the same thing. They do the scenario-based training. They practice situations that feel real to them, and that works for both ends.
Now, can you describe to me what emotional safety is versus physical safety?
In the class?
No, as far as emotional safety, like for instance, if they're being bullied or something like that, is there a difference between the two, the emotional versus physical?
Not really. I mean, I think in a situation where somebody's being bullied, there's always a chance of a physical threat. I think what's really important is that people with disabilities feel that they are in control of these situations, that they have confidence in themselves to say, I don't like this, I want you to stop. And just like people without disabilities, you know, the more confidence they have in themselves, the better they feel, the where they can say, you can call me that, but that doesn't make me that, right? It doesn't make me, you can call me stupid, that doesn't make me stupid.
Right.
So really just feeling happy and safe in their bodies and their minds, that can sort of make them able to steer clear of these situations, to report these situations instead of internalizing them.
Right. Now, how do disabled individuals get access to your services for this type of training, and is there any cost involved?
Well, right now our training is offered in a couple different ways. We're grant funded in the Department of Developmental Services, in the Boston Public Schools, and at our agency Triangle. Outside of that, we do group classes at different disability service agencies and schools. Those agencies will either write grants to fund us coming in or pay from their budget. We also have private lessons available. Unfortunately, right now we don't, although we are looking into it as we grow, looking to have just classes that you can sign up for open to the public, like we do our general population classes. For right now, we have private lessons available. There is a cost associated with it, but we also have scholarships available if people feel like the need is great and they can't fund that. But you can always go to our website, www.impactboston.org, or you can give us a call, and we'll work with you or work with whoever to make it possible.
Can a disabled individual ask for this type of training, like with their staff or at the residence or something?
Absolutely.
And then the residents can look into it or something like that?
Absolutely.
That would
We
be a
always
good thing.
encourage people to advocate for themselves, especially if they feel like they need training around safety, because that's you know, very
And you
important.
can divide the training up, right? Where, you know, one specific scenario versus,
Right.
you know, another. One class you can have one, and,
Right.
you know.
We can target it towards what the needs are. If
Right.
they can't, you know, for example, fund the full 8-week curriculum, we can pick and choose as to what feels most important to people.
Exactly.
Okay. Lastly, where and how can a disabled person safely report any abuse or violence they feel they've experienced? I know you've touched on this a little bit, but again, how can they safely report this abuse?
Well, like I said, what usually happens is they will safely report to a trusted adult who will then help them call DPPC. There's also DPPC cards and posters all over the place with the hotline number. And that is the best place to call to report abuse, because they, like I said, know the best way to handle it when it's this specific population. I don't know the number off the top of my head, but again, there's all sorts of different posters and cards and stuff that have the number on them that they can carry with them in case. I know Mass Advocates Standing Strong, a lot of different organizations will hand out these magnets and cards and posters so that people know, here's the number, I have it, if something happens to me I call, and the operators will work with them to figure out what the best next step is to keep them safe.
Great. Well, I appreciate both of you coming in today. It's been very interesting.
Thank you.
Absolutely, thank you for having us.
It is both sensible and responsible to give the disabled the ability to utilize personal safety skills and instincts to protect themselves. Thank you for being with us today, and I hope you will join us again for You're Not Alone, Surviving Your Child's Disability.